Alright guys, at Love Clark again, and this is chapter 5, review of Germany and the Holy Roman Empire. This is Germany in prophecy, okay? A lot of the stuff we reviewed in this book, in this magazine, is identical to the prophecies, or very similar in nature to the prophecies in what Luciferian people and occultic people with understanding are telling me about what's going to happen to the Christians is the same thing as what this magazine's telling us, that the churches are not telling us, okay? And so it lines up with a couple of people that I know or that I've met online, and they're saying the same thing, that Christians, in the state of what we call Christianity today, it's pretty much done, and it's in the Bible, that your own Bible, that's going to happen. Okay, Germany in prophecy. Let's continue. Most people have ignored the fact that Herbert W. Armstrong warned the world that Germany would rise again. Only a few listened. Mr. Armstrong said German industry and the German people Mr. Armstrong said German industry and the German people's willpower and determination to work, produce, and organize was the very heart and lifeblood of all Europe. He said the prostrate body of Europe could not come back without the leadership of a revived and vigorous Germany. The world is witnessing history repeat itself one more time. Soon it will be all over. Only the returning Jesus Christ will be able to put a stop to it. The book of Nahum is an end-time prophecy about Germany. Nahum 3:16-17 talks about this elusive power. Thou hast multiplied thy merchants above the stars of heaven. The cankerworm spoileth and flieth away. Thy crown are as the locust. Winston Churchill even called the Germans and their military machine the locust, and thy captains as the great grasshoppers which camp in the hedges in the cold day, but when the sun arises they flee away, and their place is not known where they are. After World War II, the Nazis just went underground and disappeared like grasshoppers in wintertime. Suddenly they were gone, but just as suddenly they have burst back on the world scene. That's exactly the way God foretold it was going to happen in this end time. God's word is true. That is why Mr. Armstrong could preach with such absolute authority about the certainty and terrible consequences of Germany rising again, because the Bible said so. Now pause for a second. This is my little comments on this, okay? Mr. Armstrong teaches a lot of truth that Christian churches don't have, and teaches some identity, and teaches a lot of really absolute plain truth, okay, that you can't deny. But there's people that follow into cultic with this, and they follow what's called Armstrongism, and they start making Mr. Armstrong into some kind of special prophet, and they kind of like set him up and worship him, okay, to a degree. It's called Armstrongism, and they put all their trust in Armstrong, and I don't do that, okay? You shouldn't do that with nobody, except for Yah, except for your Creator, who you believe in, you know, that you're dedicated to. Anyway, unpause. So that's my opinion. Sorry, pause again. That's my opinion on that, though. There's the thing called Armstrongism. Yes, Armstrong taught a lot of plain truth, but not everything I agree with. And they also, some people put him on a pedestal and created a god out of him, or basically an idol. And I'm not going to fall for that. So, unpause. Fierceness in Germany. Let's examine some of the prophecies Mr. Armstrong covered to come to his startling accurate predictions about Germany in the end time. God is raising up the Germans to correct an evil Israel. You hear that, people? God is raising up the Germans to correct an evil Israel, comprised of nations who have had a history with God. They have failed God. Now God is going to punish them for this most heinous of all sins. In verse 6 of Habakkuk 1, God says, "For lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, the bitter and hasty nation." The Chaldeans are an ancient people of Babylon. Ancient Babylon and the Chaldeans have passed from the world scene, but the old Babylonian religion remains. "Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate." Isaiah 47:1. Who is Babylon today? Which religion in this world has a throne today? Sit thou silent, and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. I was wroth with my people. I have polluted my inheritance and given them into thine hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient has they very, very heavily laid thy yoke. Verses 5 and 6. A woman or lady in Bible prophecy refers to a church. As described in chapter 3, a great false church either dominates or heavily influences the 7 resurrections of the Holy Roman Empire. Revelation 17, 5-6. This empire is now forming in Europe for the 7th and final time. Revelation 17:12 says it will be a 10-nation European combine. In Germany, ancient Assyria will be the dominant player in this Euro force. God calls this German-led war machine bitter and hasty in Habakkuk 1. A very good description. They are full of bitterness, complete with lightning-fast blitzkrieg warfare. God says they are a nation which shall march through the breadth of the land to possess the dwelling places that are not theirs. Habakkuk 1:6. God says he is going to raise up the Chaldeans. Everything will revolve around Germany. The other countries are just along for the ride. And verse 7, God gives us more understanding of these fierce, warlike people. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity shall proceed of themselves. The Jerusalem Bible renders verse 7, a people feared and dreaded. From their might proceeds their right, their greatness. If you know anything about history, you know about whom God is talking. The German people are warriors whose strength gives them the right to do anything they want, anytime they want. Verse 11, then shall his mind change, and he shall pass over and offend, imputing his power unto his God. The mind of this man who leads this political beast will change because his God. Satan is going to heavily influence him, if not possess him. I know everyone's trying to pause for a second, sorry. I know everyone's trying to put a name or face on a figure or a man, but what about Donald Trump, guys? Anyway, unpause. The power of Satan will be behind a revived and terrifying Nazi Germany. Excuse me. An unholy union. And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast. Okay, anyway. One of the greatest miracles of this world has produced in our time is the resurrection of Germany. The rise of Germany from rubble to the greatest power in Europe, and soon to be the greatest power in the world. It's mind-boggling. Alright, next up we're going to talk about the beast power. The beast power, okay?